Hello, YouTubers. It is Everyday Shenanigans, and it is Thursday, January 9th, 2021. Greetings from the high 10, and thanks for joining me. Oh, mercy, mercy. The shenanigans has begun in the year 2020. Well, this is an update to the R. Kelly saga. I just watched a live feed of Azriel Clary, and I also was able to get the beginning of that live feed. I'm assuming because you never know what is all of a live feed, but what pieces I were able to uh, ascertain. Mercy. Joycelyn Savage and Azriel Clary are in the Trump Tower, going back and forward, arguing about said things in the apartment. My understanding is that Joycelyn was upset with Azriel about having men in the apartment. If my understanding is correct, she was saying something about it being disrespectful, which I thought was odd because naturally you all are moving out of this man's apartment and you have said things to take out of the apartment. I saw boxes, so how were they supposed to be moved out of the said apartment? So I found that odd. What was all the anger about between the two? Because that makes no sense. You two have been friends. You've been lovers, living with this man. So what is all the anger about? I noticed that with Azriel, she's very angry and contrite in this live feed. I thought I heard someone mentioning something about sleeping with someone that was an outsider, which I thought, okay, you two have been on your own for some time now, with Mr. R. Kelly being incarcerated since last winter. So we're coming up on a year that the man has been away, and naturally they are women. So I don't know, maybe someone can correct me on that said statement. When Joycelyn was making the comment about the men in the apartment, and Azriel responds to saying, oh, R doesn't like men. Robert doesn't like men. Oh, yeah, really? Well, we already know she's alluding to the fact that Mr. R. Kelly is bisexual in this live feed. So those of you who like to contest things, Azriel confirmed it in this live feed, which I'm not shocked by that anyway. The fact that Azriel, as she's tromping through the house, upset, mad, after they fought, whatever, and trying to give the Grammys to Miss Joycelyn. Because as I stated, the feed I had first came across, I didn't think Joycelyn was in the apartment because I didn't see the beginning where the two were bickering back and forth. So she's trying to give her the Grammys, get whatever out the apartment, give her whatever she's trying to get. And the fact that she admits, as she's going through this apartment, that we stupidly lied for Robert in that interview. So I find that interesting that she admitted that. So here now in a live feed, you and this girl are arguing about said things in this apartment and who's in the apartment and who shouldn't be in the apartment. And all this comes out now that Robert is gay, bisexual, and that also you lied in your interview to Gayle King. I found that interesting. So the fact that Azriel is supposed to be revealing her truth or giving her version of whatever happened in her life with Mr. R. Kelly, that was released days ago or so through social media. So now I'm starting to wonder exactly what is it that she's going to tell. And after this live feed, it should be very interesting on what she will divulge in her commentary of her life with Mr. R. Kelly. As I state, the fact that, once again, the male issue with Mr. Kelly liking men, well, you two went along for that ride. So now you're admitting that you knew that he liked men. So that makes me wonder that you knew and saw of him probably being with a man. And that's even to me more horrific than when I heard it through Geronda Pace commentary a while back that he partook with men. So now we know he obviously did the same with them. And there was someone had said recently that the girls knew of that because the men were coming in and out, or said man was coming in and out of a home shared with them and Mr. R. Kelly. I couldn't understand how these women could have lived with Mr. Kelly now that we see this fiasco going on. So it leads you to wonder if they had spats before, arguments before. How could he divide his time up between this female, that female? Because you have to remember at one time, Dominic was in the mix of this. So he had 3 women he had to share his time with. And I'm assuming there were more women at another time. Miss Calhoun said that in her commentary in the documentary, The Reckoning. She stated that's why it didn't work with her. The relationship could not flourish because she knew of other women. And we know that Mr. Kelly liked to have different women living with him at the same time. So how could all these women have a decent relationship with a man who has other women living in the house? I mean, it would be hard if he didn't have them in the house. You get my drift. Okay. I thought Azriel would be the one that was over Mr. Kelly's estate. She was the mouthpiece during the Gayle King interview. She's the most vocal one. She was the one who was on the visitors list to him in the jail. So I just naturally assumed she would be the one over his belongings, his things, his estate. So who's going to get those things out of his apartment, his furniture, blah, blah, blah? Who's over his monies, royalties, his estate? I'm curious to that. We now know that Azriel has bought a home. She went to Instagram and showed a picture of her new home. So where's Joycelyn going? Where will she be living? Will she be still living in the city or no? Will Azriel be living in the city or outside the city? It's been stated that where Azriel is living, she doesn't know anyone. She doesn't have any friends. Well, I suspect you didn't have any friends when you were in Chicago, except for Miss Joycelyn. Okay, go figure. Will Joycelyn make up with her family? Will she finally decide to meet up with her family and try to rekindle a relationship with her family? I'm very curious to that. A lot is to be said of this situation. And I'm going to throw this in here because some of you have made mention of this on different channels and below in my comment box about Mr. Clary. He seemed very genuine to me, and some of you have blamed the parents for willingly knowing that their child was messing around with a grown man, which we know that is a lie because Geronda said in the documentary that her mother didn't care where she went and what she was doing. She just didn't care. That's why it was easy for her to fall into the fold of Mr. R. Kelly. But what I found interesting with Mr. Clary, the Clary situation, is that Azriel was 17 years of age when she left her home in Florida. So that means Mr. Kelly took up with a minor, and I couldn't understand why he didn't file charges or put out a police report that his child was missing and that he assumed that she would be in the company of Mr. R. Kelly. So I am curious about that. I don't know if anything transpired with the legal report filed to law enforcement there in Florida, but I would be curious to know if there was, because that's one case that I always thought was odd because she was the one recently that was a minor that fled with Mr. R. Kelly and lived with him. So I always wondered if Mr. Clary filed a police report about her leaving because she's not in school, she's not visible, she was gone. So did he file a report? I'm curious about that situation. But as I state, this was a really wild, wicked live feed of these girls going back and forward, arguing with one another about Grammys and this and that. And as I state, who's getting all this stuff out of Mr. R. Kelly's apartment? Why wasn't there a legal representative there to make sure the ladies got whatever they're supposed to get and not get? I don't know. I can't tell because there were different people standing in the background. But I think it's sad that these two ladies had to resort to a physical altercation. I'm assuming Joycelyn got heated and hot, went at her. Azriel jumping up and down about, hey, I can fight, which some of you are judging. Maybe you can't, because why you got to say it if you can? I don't know. But what I will say is, this is despicable to me. To me, it was despicable just having the young ladies in his company, especially knowing that Azriel was underage when she went to Mr. Kelly at the age of 17. The fact of different women living with each other, interchanging in and out of the household with each other, them all having sexual relationships with each other and Mr. Kelly and possibly other men. To each his own, but it's still poor taste and it's sad. And looking at this live feed is representative of that situation being pathetic and sad. That in the end, this man is incarcerated. His lease was up in December of 19. You all are having to vacate the premises, and you're arguing about Grammys and this and that, fighting, when once you all were all lovey-dovey in a said residence with Mr. Kelly. This is what I want to say to you all before I check out of here. I believe if Mr. R. Kelly had not been arrested, these two would still be living with him, living the lie, willingly and knowingly living the lie, doing things that obviously maybe they really didn't care to do but went on with it anyway. That's obvious. And the fact that Azriel also threw out at Joycelyn, hey, you've been sleeping with a minor, which that didn't make any sense because you still went along for the ride. And although I believe Mr. R. Kelly to be a sadist, a narcissist, a grand manipulator, and easy to coax ladies into doing certain things that maybe they didn't want to do or like to do, and then too, she was a child, you still stayed on with Mr. Kelly. And that's the thing that a lot of people are grappling with, that once you became an adult, you still stayed on with him. And you didn't have to, but you stayed anyway. So now to throw all this shade at Joycelyn about him liking men, her sleeping with you, and you were a minor, so you have now admitted on a live feed that Mr. Kelly did take you into his home as a minor, that sexual relations partook with all of you all, and she was an adult, he was an adult, that you lied during the Gayle King interview. You just sealed your own fate by admitting all that. So now the district attorney can now call you in to testify on your live feed that you just rendered to the world. You see, this is what I say about people when they hot-headed and they like to talk and run their mouth and go live and film everything. Sometimes you need to think before you speak, because now you just implicated yourself and Mr. Kelly as a pedophile and sleeping and having sex with underage girls. This is sad to me, and it's quite disgusting, quite frankly. And like I said, people make mistakes, women make mistakes. Many women have made mistakes partaking with the wrong type of men. They just weren't R. Kelly. They just didn't have money. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous. But it happens every day. But this live feed was telling, and really, like I said, was sad and it was pathetic. It's very, very sad, because in the end, these kids had families before they met Mr. R. Kelly. And the fact that they lied and threw their parents under the bus and lied and said these people asked for money, or that money was paid, or there was extortion, bribery, whatever. Now you have come forward in a live feed, venting and ranting, and told on yourself. And what you have to ask yourself, what was it all for? Because some of you argued and bickered and sent death threats to these people's families on things you thought you knew was going on with these people, and now you know the truth. It was all a lie. And he had them lie. And they rode the lie. And now, everybody is separated. And the Piper has played out. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Like and share. I'll be back with another update. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.